Hello and welcome back to Terraria. Now today I'm going to be showing you what you need to do in order to attract NPCs to your house. The conditions for NPCs to spawn are very specific. First off, they need to have a room. Wait, let me get the wrong one. Let me get this. First off, they need to have a room, as I was saying. It needs to be sufficiently sized with and completely enclosed with a door. It also needs background walls that are not dirt. Any background wall will do. And you will also need a table and one chair, as well as some form of light. Now, if you check the housing thing, this little icon right here, and you click on Housing Query, you'll see this housing is suitable. Now, every single house needs to have this basic setup: walls, a table, and a chair to make it valid. And when it is valid, it means an NPC can and will move into it, if there are any NPCs available. Every NPC needs its own room and its own little house area, just like this. It needs to be at least this size. You might be able to get away with a few blocks shorter, or you can make it as large as you want. But it just needs to have those simple facts: a table, a chair, completely enclosed, and access to a door. Once you have those factors, NPCs can and will start moving in. Now, in order to get NPCs, some of them need specific conditions before they can start moving in. Others will just show up as soon as there's an available house. Now, the first NPC you will encounter is the guide. This is the guy that shows up as soon as you create your new world. He's always there. He counts as an NPC and will need his own house. Most likely the second NPC that will show up is the merchant. Like the guide, he doesn't have any specific conditions needed for him to show up other than having his own room. Once you have two valid rooms available, he will show up and you will be able to buy mining helmets, piggy banks, anvils, that sort of thing from him. The only condition needed is that you have an available room for him. Now, one of the two NPCs that will show up after that is either the nurse, who will heal you for a few coins, or the Demolitionist. Now, the nurse, she needs a specific condition before she will spawn, namely that you find heart crystals. You find them down in the caverns and tunnels underground. You'll see little heart crystals on the ground that you have to hit with a hammer, pick them up, and use them. They'll give you additional hearts, and that will meet the conditions needed for her to show up. Again, she simply needs an available room, and she will show up if you meet those conditions. The Demolitionist is the guy that sells bombs, grenades, and dynamite. His conditions for showing up, again, his own room, as well as finding either grenades or bombs, which you can usually find out of pots and sometimes in chests. Now, once you do, he'll show up, just like the nurse and the merchant, and they'll move in if there's an available room. Oh, one more thing that should be noted. For some reason, bathtubs and toilets count as chairs and tables for making a room valid, as you can see. Ficod, or however, is for some reason living in the bathroom. I don't know why, but I don't judge. Whatever you want to do, buddy. Anyway, the next guy you'll probably meet is this guy, Rodney. He's the Clothier. He shows up once you find the dungeon. When you find the dungeon, you'll see this guy. Well, you'll see an old man standing in front of it. If you talk to the old man at night, he will turn into Skeletron, a boss that is a flying skull with flying skeletal arms. Once you defeat him, you'll gain access to the dungeon, as well as having the Clothier show up at your house, again, if there's an available room. The Dryad, this lady, is someone who sells purification powder, which you need to cleanse the corruption, as well as grass seeds, sunflowers, and stuff like that. She shows up once you have defeated a boss. Usually right after the first boss you encounter will be the Eye of Cthulhu, and after you defeat him, she will show up again if there's available housing. Now, the gun merchant is a bit trickier, since in order to get him to spawn, you need to first find a gun. Now, the normal place to find guns is inside the dungeon. And again, you need to kill Skeletron Prime, or I believe you can also get them from the corruption, out of those little orbs that spawn the Eater of Worlds. Occasionally a gun will drop from one of those. But as soon as you find your first gun, any type of gun, he will have a chance to spawn as long as there is an available room. Now, we also have Amy, which is the mechanic. She sells wrenches, wire cutters, wire, levers and switches, as well as pressure plates. You can find her inside the dungeon. She is tied up, and you right-click on her and rescue her. And given enough time, she will find her way back to your house, assuming, again, if there is room for her. Now, all that being said, it is a good idea to pre-build rooms. At least 1 or 2 extra rooms at all times. As soon as you see an NPC show up, and you have the time to do it, build another room. That way there will always be a room available in case another NPC shows up. Now here we have the Goblin. He's the Goblin Tinkerer. He sells rocket boots, rulers, tinkerer's workshops, grappling hooks, tool belts, as well as spiky balls. Now this guy can be a pain to find. He only shows up after the first goblin invasion. And you trigger goblin invasions by going to the edge of the map, finding a goblin scout and killing them, which can cause the goblin invasion to start happening. It doesn't happen instantly, but it triggers the conditions needed to have it start triggering. Now once the goblin invasion happens, and you defeat the goblin invasion, this guy, the Goblin Tinkerer, will appear someplace underground. It's random where he appears. He'll be tied up, and you'll just have to right-click on him and rescue him, and he'll show up at your house. The problem is he is randomly dropped somewhere underground. He could be anywhere, so finding him can be time-consuming and really a pain in the ass. But once you do, you'll be able to purchase stuff from him. Now there is another NPC called the Wizard. The Wizard only shows up after you enter hard mode. I have yet to find him, but once you defeat the Wall of Flesh and trigger hard mode, he, like the Goblin Tinkerer, will appear someplace underground. He'll be tied up, and all you have to do is right-click on him, rescue him, and he will show up here in your house. Now, as I said, I have yet to find him in this world, so I have no one to... I can't show you what he sells. But once you find him, just like the Goblin Tinkerer, he'll show up in your house if you have available room. Now, as I said, you can use this to make sure each room is valid, and as I said before, toilets and bathtubs count as tables and chairs for valid housing. Also, workbenches count as valid tables, which is also something to keep in mind. You can create your houses as elaborately as you want, or you can keep them simple little block houses like I showed you above. But yeah, that's the basic idea and the basic conditions needed to have NPCs start spawning, as well as the specialized conditions needed to find some of these other NPCs like the mechanic, arms dealer, and like that. I believe that's all the NPCs that are in the game. If I'm missing anybody, please let me know and explain in the comments how to find them or which one it is I missed. But yeah, for now, that's all there is to it, and thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. Goodbye.